The Art of Healthy Love. Simple Lessons for Stronger and Happier Relationships. By T.M. Light. Description: The Art of Healthy Love. Simple Lessons for Stronger and Happier Relationships is a powerful SEO-optimized guide that explores how to build lasting, meaningful, and emotionally healthy relationships. This motivational ebook teaches practical lessons on communication, trust, boundaries, emotional intimacy, conflict resolution, and self-love. It reveals how healthy love is not found by chance, but created through awareness, patience, and daily intentional choices. Designed for romantic relationships, friendships, and family connections, this book helps readers recognize unhealthy patterns and develop emotional maturity. Discover how to create balanced, respectful, and fulfilling relationships that grow stronger through life's challenges and everyday care. Chapter Outline. Introduction. Chapter 1. Understanding what healthy love really means. Chapter 2. Learning to love yourself first. Chapter 3. The power of honest communication. Chapter 4. Building trust one day at a time. Chapter 5. Setting healthy boundaries without guilt. Chapter 6. Managing conflict in a healthy way. Chapter 7. Emotional intimacy and deep connection. Chapter 8. Keeping love strong through life changes. Chapter 9. Recognizing unhealthy patterns and letting go. Chapter 10. Creating a lasting and joyful partnership. Conclusion. Introduction. Why healthy love matters more than perfect love. In a world filled with romantic movies, social media highlight reels, and fairy tale endings, many people have grown up believing that love is supposed to look perfect. We are often taught, directly or indirectly, that the right relationship will feel effortless, that true love means never having conflict, and that somewhere out there is one perfect person who will complete us and make life whole. These ideas may sound beautiful, but they often create unrealistic expectations that leave people disappointed, confused, and questioning their relationships when reality does not match the fantasy. The truth is, healthy love has never been about perfection. It has always been about growth. Healthy love is not something you simply stumble upon one lucky day. It is not a prize reserved for a fortunate few, nor is it something handed to us fully formed and flawless. Healthy love is built slowly, intentionally, and with care. It is created through understanding, patience, effort, honesty, and the willingness to keep learning, both about ourselves and about the people we choose to love. This is one of the most empowering truths you can ever embrace. Love is not about finding someone perfect. It is about becoming the kind of person who can build something meaningful, and choosing someone willing to build alongside you. Far too many people walk into relationships believing that if it is meant to be, everything will naturally fall into place. They expect love to always feel easy. They assume disagreements are signs that something is wrong. They believe struggle means incompatibility. But every real and lasting relationship will face challenges. Every deep connection will encounter misunderstandings, difficult conversations, and moments of uncertainty. The strength of a relationship is not measured by the absence of problems. It is measured by how two people face those problems together. One of the most damaging myths about love is the belief that another person will somehow complete us. This idea has been romanticized for generations, yet it places an unfair burden on relationships. No one can fill every emotional gap within us. No one can heal wounds we refuse to acknowledge. No one can carry the responsibility of making us whole. Healthy love begins when we understand that we are already whole individuals, worthy of love exactly as we are. A healthy relationship does not complete you, it complements you. It adds value to your life, but it does not define your worth. It supports your growth rather than replacing your need for self-growth. This is where emotional maturity becomes essential. Emotional maturity is the ability to take responsibility for your feelings, communicate openly, manage conflict with respect, and remain self-aware enough to recognize your own patterns. It is the foundation of every strong relationship because it allows people to love with intention rather than fear. Without emotional maturity, love often becomes reactive. Misunderstandings turn into arguments. Expectations become silent resentments. Insecurities create distance. But when emotional maturity is present, relationships become spaces of safety and understanding. Challenges become opportunities for deeper connection, rather than reasons to walk away. Communication is another pillar of healthy love. Many relationships do not fail because love disappears. They fail because people stop expressing themselves honestly. Feelings remain unspoken. Needs go unmet because they are never clearly communicated. Assumptions replace conversations. Healthy love requires courage, the courage to speak openly, to listen deeply, and to have uncomfortable conversations with honesty and respect. Trust also plays a powerful role. Trust is not built through grand promises or dramatic gestures. It is built through consistency. It grows through small daily actions that demonstrate reliability, honesty, and care. Trust is what allows love to feel safe. It creates the emotional security needed for vulnerability, connection, and intimacy to flourish. And then there is self-awareness, perhaps one of the most overlooked ingredients of healthy love. Self-awareness allows us to understand how our past experiences shape our present relationships. It helps us recognize our triggers, fears, habits, and emotional responses. Without self-awareness, we often repeat unhealthy patterns without realizing it. But with self-awareness comes the power to choose differently, to respond with wisdom instead of impulse, and to create healthier dynamics rooted in growth. This book was written to help you understand and practice these truths. The purpose of The Art of Healthy Love, Simple Lessons for Stronger and Happier Relationships, is not to offer unrealistic promises or perfect formulas. Instead, it is designed to provide simple, practical lessons that can help you build stronger connections in every area of life. Whether you are seeking a healthier romantic relationship, hoping to strengthen a friendship, navigating family dynamics, or simply learning how to love more intentionally, the principles in these pages are for you. You will discover that healthy love is not complicated, though it does require effort. It is found in the small choices we make every day, to listen with patience, to communicate with honesty, to set boundaries with kindness, to trust with wisdom, and to keep growing both individually and together. This journey is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aware. It is about letting go of harmful myths and replacing them with truth. It is about understanding that stronger relationships are not created by luck, but by intention. It is about recognizing that happiness in love is not something you chase, it is something you cultivate. No matter where you are in your relationship journey, there is room for growth. There is room for healing. There is room to create healthier, deeper, and more fulfilling connections. The lessons ahead are meant to encourage you, challenge you, and remind you of something powerful: healthy love is possible. Not because life will always be easy. Not because relationships will never face challenges. But because with self-awareness, trust, communication, and emotional growth, love can become one of the most rewarding parts of life. As you turn these pages, approach each lesson with an open heart and a willing mind. Allow yourself to reflect, to learn, and to grow. Because the art of healthy love is not about finding perfection. It is about building something real, something strong, and something beautifully lasting. Chapter 1: Understanding what healthy love really means. Love beyond movies and fairy tales. From the moment we are old enough to understand stories, We are surrounded by messages about what love is supposed to look like. Movies show dramatic declarations under the rain. Novels describe instant connections so powerful that nothing can stand in their way. Social media offers polished snapshots of smiling couples, romantic vacations, and picture-perfect moments that seem effortless and flawless. Over time, these images shape our understanding of love. They teach us, often without us realizing it, to expect excitement without difficulty, passion without conflict, and connection without effort. They create the illusion that true love is supposed to sweep us off our feet and carry us effortlessly toward happiness. But real love is not a fairy tale. Real love is not built on perfect moments, dramatic gestures, or constant emotional highs. Healthy love is much deeper than excitement. It is steadier than passion alone. It is quieter than the grand displays we often see celebrated in stories, but it is infinitely stronger because it is built on truth, trust, and intentional effort. To truly understand what healthy love means, we must first unlearn many of the myths we have been taught. One of the greatest misconceptions about love is the belief that intensity equals depth. Many people mistake overwhelming emotion for genuine connection. They believe that if love feels consuming, dramatic, and all-encompassing, it must be real. But intensity is not always a sign of health. Sometimes what feels like powerful love is actually unhealthy attachment. Sometimes the butterflies, the obsession, and the emotional roller coaster are not evidence of deep connection, but signs of instability, fear, and emotional dependence. Healthy love feels different. It does not leave you constantly questioning where you stand. It does not fill your days with anxiety, confusion, or emotional exhaustion. It does not require you to lose yourself in order to keep someone close. Healthy love brings peace. It creates a sense of emotional stability that allows both people to feel secure, valued, and respected. It gives you room to breathe, to grow, and to remain fully yourself while sharing your life with another person. This is one of the clearest distinctions between healthy love and toxic attachment. Toxic attachment often grows from fear rather than connection. It is driven by insecurity, possessiveness, and the desperate need for validation. In unhealthy relationships, love can become tangled with control. One person may feel they cannot function without the other. Their happiness becomes entirely dependent on the relationship. They may tolerate disrespect, dishonesty, or emotional pain because the fear of losing the relationship feels unbearable. This is not love. It is dependency disguised as devotion. Healthy love, by contrast, is rooted in choice rather than fear. Two people come together not because they are incomplete without each other, but because they choose to build something meaningful together. They support one another without controlling one another. They care deeply without losing their individuality. This leads us to another important distinction: the difference between passion and emotional security. Passion is exciting. It is often what first draws people together. It creates chemistry, attraction, and emotional intensity. Passion can make love feel exhilarating and alive. There is nothing wrong with passion. In fact, it can be a beautiful part of connection. But passion alone cannot sustain a healthy relationship. Passion is often strongest in the beginning, during the phase of discovery and novelty. It creates sparks, excitement, and anticipation. But over time, relationships require something deeper to endure. They require emotional security. Emotional security is what allows love to survive beyond the honeymoon phase. It is the confidence that your relationship is built on trust, consistency, and genuine care. It is the comfort of knowing you can be vulnerable without fear of rejection. It is the assurance that disagreements will not threaten the entire relationship. Passion may make your heart race. Emotional security makes your heart rest. A healthy relationship balances both. It holds on to passion, while building the kind of safety that allows love to mature. At the center of this emotional security are four essential foundations: respect, honesty, emotional safety, and consistency. Respect is the first and perhaps most important pillar of healthy love. Without respect, love cannot thrive. Respect means valuing another person's thoughts, feelings, boundaries, and individuality. It means listening even when you disagree. It means refusing to use words or actions that belittle, manipulate, or diminish the other person. Real love never requires disrespect. No matter how strong feelings may be, a relationship without respect will eventually become damaging. Honesty is equally essential. Healthy love cannot survive deception. Honesty is not only about telling the truth when asked. It is about openness, transparency, and authenticity. It is about showing up as your real self and creating space for your partner to do the same. Dishonesty creates distance because trust cannot grow where truth is absent. Even difficult truths strengthen relationships when shared with sincerity and care. Then there is emotional safety. Emotional safety means knowing that your feelings, vulnerabilities, and concerns will be met with understanding rather than judgment. It is the freedom to express yourself honestly, without fear of ridicule, rejection, or punishment. In emotionally safe relationships, people do not have to hide parts of themselves to maintain peace. They can speak openly, share fears, and navigate challenges together. This kind of safety allows intimacy to deepen. Finally, consistency is what transforms good intentions into lasting trust. Words alone are never enough. Promises are meaningful only when matched by action. Consistency means showing up again and again with reliability, care, and integrity. It is the repeated demonstration that your love can be trusted. Healthy love is not built through occasional grand gestures. It is built through consistent daily choices. Another defining characteristic of healthy relationships is the freedom to remain an individual. Many people mistakenly believe that love requires complete merging, that two people should become one in every sense. This idea sounds romantic, but it often creates unhealthy dynamics. Healthy relationships allow space for individuality and independence. Loving someone does not mean losing yourself. It does not mean abandoning your dreams, friendships, values, or personal growth for the sake of the relationship. In fact, the strongest relationships are often those where both people continue to grow as individuals while growing together as partners. Healthy love celebrates independence because it understands that two whole people create a stronger partnership than two people relying on each other for identity. When both individuals maintain their sense of self, the relationship becomes a place of mutual support rather than suffocating dependence. You can pursue your goals, nurture your interests, and maintain your personal identity while still being deeply connected. This balance is what creates emotional partnership. Emotional partnership is one of the most beautiful expressions of healthy love. It means standing beside one another as equals. It means sharing life's burdens and joys together, without expecting one person to carry the emotional weight of both. In an emotional partnership, both people contribute to the health of the relationship. Both communicate. Both listen. Both take responsibility for their emotions and actions. This is very different from emotional dependency. Emotional dependency occurs when one person relies on the other for all emotional stability, validation, and self-worth. It creates imbalance and pressure. No relationship can thrive when one person becomes entirely responsible for the emotional well-being of the other. Healthy love says, I value you deeply, but I am responsible for my own emotional growth. Dependency says, I need you to make me okay. The difference is profound. Emotional partnership empowers both people. Dependency drains both people. When love is rooted in partnership, it becomes a source of strength, encouragement, and shared growth. It allows two people to face life's challenges together while remaining grounded within themselves. This is what healthy love truly means. It is not about perfection. It is not about never arguing, never struggling, or never experiencing difficult seasons. It is about building something real. It is about choosing respect over control, honesty over deception, trust over fear, and partnership over dependence. Healthy love may not always look like the dramatic stories we were taught to admire. It may not always be flashy or intense. But it is steady. It is grounding. It is freeing. And most importantly, it is sustainable. As you continue this journey of understanding love, remember this: the healthiest relationships are not the ones that appear perfect from the outside. They are the ones built on strong foundations from the inside. They are created by people willing to grow, communicate, trust, and love intentionally. Real love is not found in fantasy. It is built in truth. And when you begin to understand this, you open yourself to the kind of love that does not simply excite the heart for a moment, but strengthens the soul for a lifetime. Chapter 2: Learning to Love Yourself First. The relationship you have with yourself shapes every other relationship. Before healthy love can flourish between two people, it must first take root within the relationship each person has with themselves. This is one of the most powerful truths about love, yet it is often one of the most overlooked. Many people spend years searching for someone who will finally make them feel worthy, secure, complete, or enough. They believe love from another person will silence their self-doubt, heal their insecurities, and fill the emptiness they carry inside. They hope that being chosen by someone else will somehow validate their value. But no external relationship can permanently give what must first be cultivated within. The relationship you have with yourself shapes every other relationship in your life. It determines what you believe you deserve. It influences the boundaries you set, the treatment you accept, the love you give, and the way you respond when challenges arise. It becomes the foundation upon which every connection is built. If your relationship with yourself is rooted in self-doubt, fear, and insecurity, those patterns will inevitably affect the way you love others. If it is grounded in self-worth, self-respect, and emotional confidence, your relationships will reflect those qualities. Learning to love yourself first is not selfish. It is not arrogance. It is not about believing you are better than anyone else. It is about recognizing your inherent worth and understanding that your value does not depend on someone else's approval. It is about building a relationship with yourself that is so strong, honest, and healthy that no external rejection, disappointment, or uncertainty can destroy your sense of who you are. At the heart of self-love is self-worth. Self-worth is the quiet inner belief that you are valuable simply because you exist. It is not based on your accomplishments, appearance, relationship status, or the opinions of others. It is not something you earn by being perfect or proving yourself worthy of acceptance. True self-worth is unconditional. It is the understanding that your value is constant, even when life is difficult, even when you make mistakes, and even when someone fails to recognize what you bring into the world. When people lack self-worth, they often enter relationships hoping another person will provide it for them. They may tolerate disrespect because they do not believe they deserve better. They may overextend themselves to earn affection. They may become afraid to express their needs, worried that honesty will push love away. This creates painful patterns. When your worth depends on another person's attention, every text message, every moment of distance, and every disagreement can feel like a threat to your identity. You begin to measure your value through their behavior. If they seem distant, you feel unworthy. If they are critical, you question yourself. If they withdraw affection, you feel broken. This is an exhausting way to live and an unhealthy way to love. Healthy relationships require two people who understand that their worth is not up for negotiation. This is where self-respect becomes essential. Self-respect is how self-worth is expressed in daily life. It is the practice of honoring your needs, values, emotions, and boundaries. It is refusing to settle for treatment that diminishes your dignity. It is speaking up when something feels wrong. It is choosing peace over people-pleasing. When you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you. You communicate through your actions that your heart is valuable and not available for mistreatment. Without self-respect, it becomes easy to accept less than you deserve. You may ignore red flags, excuse harmful behavior, or remain in relationships that drain your spirit because fear convinces you that losing the relationship would be worse than losing yourself. But healthy love never asks you to abandon your self-respect. In fact, real love strengthens it. One of the greatest obstacles to self-love is insecurity. Insecurity often grows from painful experiences, rejection, criticism, comparison, or unmet emotional needs. It creates a constant inner voice that whispers you are not enough, not attractive enough, not lovable enough, not successful enough, not worthy enough. This voice can quietly shape relationships in destructive ways. Insecurity may lead to jealousy, overthinking, emotional dependence, or constant reassurance seeking. It can cause people to misinterpret harmless situations as threats. It can create fear of abandonment so strong that it leads to controlling behavior or emotional withdrawal. Self-doubt has a way of distorting reality. It makes people question genuine affection. It causes them to search for evidence that confirms their fears. Even in loving relationships, unresolved insecurity can create unnecessary tension because it convinces the heart to prepare for rejection rather than receive love openly. This is why emotional healing is so important. You cannot build healthy love on unhealed wounds. Healing does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It means acknowledging your experiences, understanding how they shaped you, and choosing not to let them control your future. Emotional healing is the process of releasing the beliefs that pain taught you, but love never intended for you to carry. It is learning that past rejection does not define your future worth. It is recognizing that someone else's inability to love you well was never proof that you were unlovable. Healing takes courage because it requires honesty. It asks you to face the places where fear still lingers. It asks you to challenge old narratives. It asks you to stop blaming yourself for wounds you did not create. This healing often begins with self-care. Self-care is far more than occasional indulgence. It is not simply about taking breaks, relaxing, or treating yourself. True self-care is the consistent practice of tending to your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. It is choosing habits that strengthen your relationship with yourself. It is getting enough rest, protecting your peace, speaking kindly to yourself, and creating space for reflection. It is making choices that communicate, I matter. One of the most powerful forms of self-care is setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are acts of self-love. They are not walls designed to keep people out. They are guidelines that protect your emotional well-being and preserve your dignity. Boundaries communicate what is acceptable and what is not. They create clarity. They prevent resentment. They allow love to exist in a space of mutual respect. Without boundaries, relationships can become overwhelming and unbalanced. People who struggle with self-worth often fear setting boundaries because they worry it will make them seem difficult, selfish, or unloving. But healthy people do not resent healthy boundaries. The right relationships will respect them. Boundaries are not a rejection of connection. They are what make healthy connection possible. Another important step in learning to love yourself first is releasing the need for external validation. This can be one of the hardest lessons to learn. Many people unknowingly seek validation through romantic relationships. They crave constant reassurance, approval, and affirmation because they have not yet learned how to provide those things for themselves. They feel secure only when someone else confirms their value. But validation that depends entirely on another person is fragile. It creates dependence because your confidence rises and falls based on someone else's responses. The moment they become distracted, stressed, or emotionally unavailable, your sense of worth begins to shake. Freedom comes when you learn to validate yourself. This means becoming your own source of affirmation. It means recognizing your strengths, acknowledging your growth, and reminding yourself of your worth even when no one else says it aloud. It means understanding that while love and encouragement from others are beautiful, they are additions to your foundation, not the foundation itself. When you stop seeking constant validation through relationships, something powerful happens. You begin to love from fullness rather than emptiness. You no longer need another person to complete you. You simply invite them to share in the life you are already building. This is where confidence begins to grow. Confidence is not loud arrogance or the absence of fear. True confidence is quiet self-trust. It is the steady belief that no matter what happens, you will be okay. It is knowing that your worth remains intact, regardless of how others respond to you. Confidence allows you to enter relationships with openness rather than desperation. It allows you to communicate honestly, set healthy boundaries, and walk away from what does not honor your value. Alongside confidence comes emotional independence. Emotional independence means taking responsibility for your emotional well-being. It does not mean isolating yourself or refusing support. It means understanding that while relationships can enrich your life, they are not responsible for stabilizing your entire emotional world. Emotionally independent people can love deeply without becoming consumed. They can experience disappointment without losing themselves. They can handle conflict without collapsing into fear. They understand that love is strongest when shared between two emotionally grounded individuals. Developing emotional independence is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and any future relationship. It creates space for love to be chosen freely rather than clung to out of fear. It allows relationships to become partnerships rather than lifelines. The journey of learning to love yourself first is not always easy. It requires patience. It requires self-reflection. It requires unlearning harmful beliefs and choosing new ones. There may be moments when old insecurities resurface. There may be days when self-doubt feels louder than confidence. But every step you take towards self-love strengthens the foundation of your future relationships. Every act of self-respect rewrites your story. Every boundary you set declares your worth. Every moment of self-compassion heals what once felt broken. Remember this: you are not waiting for someone else to make you worthy of love. You already are. The love you seek begins within. When you build a healthy relationship with yourself, you create the conditions for healthier relationships with others. You stop settling for connections rooted in fear. You stop chasing love that asks you to shrink. You stop believing your worth depends on being chosen. Instead, you become someone who chooses wisely. You become someone who loves fully, without losing yourself. You become someone who understands that the strongest relationships are built by people who have first learned to stand firmly in their own worth. Love yourself first, not because others do not matter, but because you matter too. And when you truly understand that, you unlock the kind of love that is not desperate, fearful, or dependent. You unlock love that is grounded, secure, and beautifully free. Chapter 4: Building Trust One Day at a Time. Why trust is earned through consistency. Trust is one of the most delicate and powerful foundations in any relationship. It is the quiet force that determines whether love feels safe or uncertain, whether a connection deepens or slowly begins to fall apart. Yet despite its importance, trust is often misunderstood. Many people assume trust is something that appears instantly when love begins, as if it is automatically granted the moment two people decide to be together. But trust is not automatic. Trust is built. And more importantly, trust is built one day at a time. It is not created through words alone, nor through promises made in emotional moments. It is shaped through patterns, behaviors, and repeated experiences that gradually teach the heart whether it can feel safe with another person. To understand trust in its deepest form, we must first understand that emotional trust is not simply about believing someone will tell the truth. It is about feeling secure in their presence. It is the quiet confidence that your emotions, vulnerability, and heart are safe in their hands. Emotional trust is the feeling of stability in a relationship. It is knowing that you will not be intentionally hurt, manipulated, or abandoned in moments of difficulty. It is the assurance that your partner is emotionally present, reliable, and consistent in how they show up for you. Reliability is a core part of this foundation. Reliability is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is showing up when you say you will. It is following through on commitments. It is being emotionally available, not only when things are easy, but also when things are challenging. Reliability creates predictability, and predictability creates emotional safety. When a person is reliable, their partner does not have to constantly wonder where they stand. They do not have to guess intentions or interpret mixed signals. They do not live in emotional uncertainty. Instead, they feel grounded in the relationship because actions consistently align with words. This alignment between words and actions is where trust begins to grow. Honesty plays a vital role in this process. Honesty is more than simply avoiding lies. It is about being real, transparent, and open in your communication. It means expressing your feelings instead of hiding them. It means sharing your truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. It means refusing to build a relationship on partial truths or emotional distance. In relationships where honesty is present, there is clarity. There is no need for constant guessing or overthinking. There is no hidden agenda or unspoken deception, creating emotional confusion. Honesty allows love to breathe. But honesty alone is not enough. It must be supported by accountability. Accountability is the willingness to take responsibility for your actions, especially when those actions cause harm or misunderstanding. It is one of the strongest indicators of emotional maturity in a relationship. When someone is accountable, they do not avoid responsibility. They do not shift blame. They do not minimize the impact of their behavior on their partner's emotions. Instead, they acknowledge their actions and their consequences. Accountability builds trust because it shows emotional integrity. It shows that a person is willing to grow, learn, and repair when necessary. Without accountability, mistakes repeat themselves. And repeated mistakes without responsibility slowly erode emotional safety. Because trust is not only built by doing the right things, it is also built by how you respond when things go wrong. Consistency is perhaps the most important element of all. Consistency is what transforms intention into trust. Anyone can say the right words once. Anyone can show kindness occasionally. But consistency is revealed over time. It is the repeated pattern of behavior that tells your partner, "You can rely on me." When someone is consistent in their love, communication and actions, their partner feels emotionally anchored. They do not have to question whether affection is real today or uncertain tomorrow. They do not have to brace themselves for emotional unpredictability. Consistency creates emotional stability. And emotional stability is the soil in which trust grows. When consistency is absent, trust becomes fragile. Inconsistent behavior creates confusion. One day a person feels deeply loved, and the next they feel emotionally distant or ignored. This emotional inconsistency creates anxiety. The mind begins to question what is real and what is temporary. Over time, this uncertainty weakens emotional connection. Trust cannot thrive in confusion. It needs stability to survive. When trust is strong, relationships feel safe. But when trust is broken, the emotional impact is often deep and lasting. Broken trust does not only affect how people see each other. It affects how they feel in the relationship. It creates emotional distance. It introduces doubt. It changes how people communicate and connect. Even small breaches of trust, if repeated or unaddressed, can slowly damage emotional intimacy. This is because trust is not just about the action itself. It is about what the action represents. A broken promise can feel like emotional neglect. A lie can feel like disrespect. Inconsistency can feel like instability. When trust is damaged, people often begin to protect themselves emotionally. They may become guarded. They may stop expressing their full feelings. They may begin to withdraw emotionally to avoid further hurt. This emotional withdrawal creates distance, even when love still exists. But broken trust does not always mean the end of a relationship. What matters most is what happens after the break. This is where forgiveness and rebuilding become essential. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened. It does not mean ignoring hurt or minimizing pain. Forgiveness is the decision to release resentment and create space for healing. It is an emotional process that allows both individuals to move forward without being trapped in the past. But forgiveness does not automatically restore trust. Trust must be rebuilt. And rebuilding trust takes time, patience, and consistent effort. When trust has been broken, words alone are no longer enough. Promises must be supported by visible change. Behavior must align with commitment. There must be a willingness to show, not just say, that change is real. Rebuilding trust requires humility. The person who broke trust must be willing to acknowledge the hurt they caused without defensiveness. They must be open to listening, even when it is uncomfortable. They must understand that healing cannot be rushed. At the same time, the person who was hurt must be willing to remain open to the possibility of healing, even if cautiously. Rebuilding trust is a process of small steps. It is rebuilt through consistent honesty after dishonesty. It is rebuilt through reliability after inconsistency. It is rebuilt through accountability after avoidance. Each positive action slowly replaces doubt with reassurance. Each moment of consistency begins to repair emotional damage. But it is important to understand that trust is not rebuilt overnight. It is rebuilt over time. This is why patience is essential. Both individuals must be willing to give the process time to unfold naturally. Rushing healing often leads to frustration. Expecting immediate restoration of trust can create pressure that prevents genuine repair. Healthy rebuilding allows space for emotions to settle and for new patterns to form. Transparency is one of the most powerful tools in rebuilding trust. Transparency means being open about your thoughts, actions, and intentions. It means removing secrecy from the relationship. It means creating clarity instead of confusion. When transparency is present, there is less room for doubt. It does not eliminate vulnerability, but it reduces uncertainty. Transparency helps rebuild emotional safety because it shows a commitment to openness. Alongside transparency is emotional openness. Emotional openness is the willingness to share your inner world honestly. It means expressing feelings, fears, and concerns instead of hiding them. In relationships where emotional openness is present, misunderstandings are resolved more easily. Emotional distance is reduced because both people feel seen and heard. Openness strengthens connection because it replaces assumptions with understanding. Trust grows when people feel emotionally included in each other's lives. One of the most important truths about trust is that it is built in everyday moments. It is not only shaped by major decisions or dramatic events. It is shaped in small, ordinary interactions. The way someone responds when their partner is vulnerable. The way they handle conflict. The way they keep their word. The way they show up emotionally, even during difficult days. These small moments accumulate over time. And eventually, they become the foundation of how much trust exists in the relationship. This is why trust requires intention. It requires awareness. It requires choosing every day to act in ways that strengthen the relationship rather than weaken it. Trust is fragile, but it is also powerful. When strong, it creates a sense of peace that allows love to flourish without fear. It allows people to be fully themselves without constantly protecting their emotions. It allows relationships to deepen into something stable, meaningful, and lasting. But when neglected, trust becomes difficult to rebuild. This is why it must be treated with care. Every honest conversation strengthens it. Every consistent action reinforces it. Every moment of accountability repairs it. And every act of transparency deepens it. Building trust is not about being perfect. It is about being dependable. It is about choosing integrity over convenience. It is about showing up, even when it is difficult. It is about aligning your actions with your values and your words. At its core, trust is a reflection of character. It is a reflection of how safe someone feels in your presence over time. And when two people commit to building trust intentionally, something powerful happens. The relationship becomes a place of emotional safety rather than uncertainty. It becomes a space where love is not constantly questioned, but confidently experienced. It becomes a partnership grounded not in fear, but in reliability, honesty, and mutual respect. Trust built one day at a time becomes the kind of trust that can withstand challenges, grow through change, and deepen with time. And that is the kind of love that lasts. Chapter 5: Setting Healthy Boundaries Without Guilt. Protecting your peace while staying connected. One of the most misunderstood aspects of love is the idea of boundaries. For many people, the word itself carries discomfort. It is often associated with rejection, distance, selfishness, or emotional coldness. Because of this misunderstanding, Countless individuals remain in relationships where their emotional, physical, and mental well-being is quietly compromised. They say yes when they mean no. They stay silent when they feel hurt. They tolerate behavior that drains them because they fear being seen as difficult, ungrateful, or unloving. Over time, this lack of boundaries does not strengthen love. It weakens it. Healthy love cannot survive without boundaries. In fact, boundaries are not the opposite of love. They are one of its clearest expressions. To understand this deeply, we must first understand what boundaries truly are. Boundaries are not walls that push people away. They are guidelines that define how you allow others to treat you, and how you choose to protect your emotional, physical, and mental well-being while remaining open to connection. They are the invisible lines that preserve your peace, while still allowing love to exist. There are different forms of boundaries, and each plays an essential role in maintaining healthy relationships. Emotional boundaries define how you allow others to interact with your feelings. They help you protect your emotional energy and prevent you from becoming overwhelmed by other people's moods, expectations, or emotional instability. Emotional boundaries ensure that while you can empathize with others, you do not lose yourself in their emotions or take responsibility for things that are not yours to carry. Physical boundaries relate to your personal space, comfort, and physical autonomy. They include how you allow others to touch you, how close you feel comfortable being, and how you protect your physical well-being. Respect for physical boundaries is essential for safety and mutual respect in any relationship. Personal boundaries extend into your time, values, priorities, and personal identity. They define how much of your time you give, what you are willing to compromise on, and what aspects of your life remain sacred to you. Personal boundaries help you maintain individuality within relationships, ensuring that you do not lose your sense of self while trying to maintain connection. When these boundaries are respected, relationships feel balanced and safe. But when they are ignored or violated, emotional tension begins to build. Many people struggle to set boundaries not because they do not understand their importance, but because of fear. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of conflict. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen as selfish. This fear is deeply rooted in human experience. From a young age, many people are taught to prioritize pleasing others over honoring their own needs. They learn that saying yes brings approval, while saying no risks disapproval or emotional distance. Over time, this conditioning becomes internalized. They begin to associate boundaries with guilt. But guilt does not always mean something is wrong. Sometimes guilt appears simply because you are doing something new, something that challenges old patterns of people-pleasing and emotional neglect. Healthy boundaries often feel uncomfortable at first because they require you to choose yourself in ways you may not be used to. But discomfort is not a sign that boundaries are wrong. It is often a sign that growth is happening. In reality, boundaries are necessary for healthy love to exist. Without boundaries, relationships become unbalanced. One person may give too much while the other takes too much. One person may sacrifice their needs, while the other remains unaware of the imbalance. Over time, this creates resentment, exhaustion, and emotional disconnect. Love cannot thrive in resentment. Love cannot grow in exhaustion. Love cannot remain healthy in imbalance. Boundaries restore balance. They ensure that both people are respected as individuals with needs, feelings, and limits. They create space for honesty, without fear of overstepping or being overrun. They allow love to exist in a way that feels safe rather than overwhelming. One of the most powerful truths about boundaries is that they protect relationships as much as they protect individuals. Without boundaries, people often lose themselves in relationships. They become overly dependent on approval. They begin to ignore their own emotional signals. They sacrifice their well-being in the name of love. But real love does not require self-abandonment. Love that demands you to constantly sacrifice your peace is not healthy love. Healthy love allows you to remain whole. It allows you to say, I care about you and I also care about myself. It allows space for both connection and individuality. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It is about creating clarity. It is about defining what is acceptable and what is not in your emotional space. It is about teaching others how to treat you with respect. When boundaries are clearly communicated, relationships become more honest. There is less guessing, less confusion, less emotional misunderstanding. People know where they stand. And clarity strengthens connection. However, communicating boundaries is often where many people struggle. They may feel afraid of how the other person will react. They may worry that expressing a boundary will lead to conflict or emotional withdrawal. But boundaries do not need to be harsh or aggressive to be effective. In fact, the healthiest boundaries are communicated with calmness, respect, and emotional clarity. The goal is not to punish or control another person. The goal is to express your truth in a way that honors both yourself and the relationship. For example, instead of expressing frustration through anger or silence, a boundary can be communicated through honest and respectful language that focuses on your feelings and needs. When boundaries are expressed this way, they are more likely to be understood rather than resisted. Healthy communication of boundaries often includes emotional honesty without blame. It is not about saying you always hurt me, but rather expressing, I feel uncomfortable when this happens and I need this to change for me to feel safe. This kind of communication creates space for dialogue rather than defensiveness. It invites understanding instead of conflict. It strengthens emotional maturity in both people. It is important to understand that setting boundaries does not guarantee that everyone will respond positively. Some people may resist boundaries because they are used to having unlimited access or control. Others may feel uncomfortable because they are unfamiliar with healthy emotional limits. But the reaction of others does not determine whether your boundary is valid. Your needs are still valid, even if they are not immediately understood. Over time, people who genuinely respect and care for you will learn to honor your boundaries. Those who consistently refuse to respect them reveal important truths about the relationship. Boundaries act as a form of emotional clarity. They show you who respects your peace and who benefits from your lack of it. This clarity is not always easy to face, but it is essential for emotional growth. One of the most transformative effects of healthy boundaries is the way they strengthen emotional intimacy. At first, this may seem surprising. Many people assume that boundaries create distance in relationships. But in reality, the opposite is often true. Healthy boundaries create safety. And safety is the foundation of intimacy. When people feel emotionally safe, they are more willing to open up. They are more willing to be vulnerable. They are more willing to express their true thoughts and feelings without fear of being judged, dismissed, or overwhelmed. Without boundaries, relationships often become emotionally chaotic. One person may feel overwhelmed by emotional demands. The other may feel unheard or unprotected. But when boundaries are in place, both people understand the emotional space they are operating within. This creates stability. And stability allows trust to deepen. When trust deepens, intimacy grows. Healthy boundaries also prevent emotional burnout. When you constantly overextend yourself emotionally, you begin to lose the ability to show up fully in the relationship. You may become resentful, exhausted, or emotionally withdrawn. But when you protect your emotional energy through boundaries, you are able to show up in a more present, balanced, and authentic way. This benefits both you and the relationship. Boundaries also encourage mutual respect. When you set clear limits, you teach others how to value your emotional space. You create a relationship dynamic where both people are responsible for their actions and aware of each other's needs. This mutual awareness strengthens the foundation of love. Another powerful aspect of boundaries is that they promote self-respect. Every time you honor your own limits, you reinforce the message that your feelings matter. You build internal confidence. You strengthen your emotional identity. You begin to trust yourself more deeply. And when you trust yourself, you become less dependent on external validation. You no longer need to tolerate emotional discomfort to feel accepted. You begin to understand that being loved should not require losing yourself. One of the most liberating realizations in life is that you are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to say no without guilt. You are allowed to step back from situations that drain you. You are allowed to prioritize your emotional well-being. These choices do not make you selfish. They make you self-aware. They make you emotionally responsible. They make you capable of building healthier relationships. Healthy love does not require you to abandon your boundaries. It respects them. It honors them. It grows stronger because of them. As you learn to set boundaries without guilt, you begin to experience a shift in how you relate to others. You stop entering relationships from a place of fear. You stop overextending yourself to earn approval. You stop sacrificing your peace for temporary acceptance. Instead, you begin to show up as your full self, grounded, confident, and emotionally aware. You begin to attract relationships that value mutual respect. You begin to experience love that feels balanced rather than draining. You begin to understand that boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the structure that allows love to remain healthy. Protecting your peace does not mean disconnecting from others. It means choosing relationships where your peace is respected. It means loving in a way that includes yourself. And when you master the art of setting healthy boundaries without guilt, you discover one of the most powerful truths about love. The relationships that honor your boundaries are the ones where love is most real. Because true love does not ask you to lose yourself. It helps you become more of who you truly are. Chapter 6: Managing Conflict in a Healthy Way. Disagreements don't have to destroy love. One of the most important truths about love that many people are never taught is this: conflict is not the enemy of a healthy relationship. In fact, conflict is inevitable in any relationship where two real, imperfect, emotionally complex human beings are trying to build a life together. Yet despite this truth, many people still believe that disagreement is a sign that something is wrong, or that a good relationship should be free of arguments. This belief creates pressure. It creates fear. And it creates avoidance. People begin to suppress their feelings in order to keep peace. They stay silent to avoid conflict. They pretend everything is fine when it is not. Over time, this silence does not protect the relationship. Instead, it slowly erodes it from within. Because what is unspoken does not disappear. It accumulates. Healthy love does not avoid conflict. Healthy love learns how to manage it. To understand this deeply, we must first normalize something very important. Disagreement is a natural part of connection. No two people are identical. Every individual carries unique experiences, values, perspectives, emotional triggers, and ways of seeing the world. Because of this, it is completely natural that there will be moments when two people do not agree. Conflict in itself is not a problem. The real issue is not whether conflict exists, but how it is handled. In unhealthy relationships, conflict often becomes destructive. Arguments may turn into personal attacks. Words may be used to hurt rather than understand. Past mistakes may be dragged into present disagreements. The goal shifts from resolution to winning. Instead of trying to understand each other, both people become focused on defending themselves. In these moments, love takes a back seat to ego. And when ego leads, connection suffers. Unhealthy arguments often leave emotional damage behind. Even when the issue seems resolved on the surface, emotional wounds remain unhealed underneath. Over time, this creates distance, resentment, and emotional fatigue. But healthy conflict looks very different. In healthy relationships, disagreement becomes an opportunity for growth rather than destruction. It becomes a space where two people learn more about each other, understand each other's emotions more deeply, and strengthen their connection through honest communication. Healthy conflict does not aim to win. It aims to understand. This shift in mindset is powerful. When couples or individuals approach conflict with curiosity, instead of defensiveness, everything changes. Instead of asking, "How do I prove I am right?" they begin to ask, "What is really happening here?" or "What does my partner need me to understand?" This creates space for emotional safety, even during disagreement. One of the most important elements in managing conflict is understanding emotional triggers. Emotional triggers are deeply rooted emotional reactions that are often shaped by past experiences, insecurities, or unresolved pain. When triggered, a person may react more intensely than the current situation alone seems to justify. This is because the reaction is not only about the present moment, but also about past emotional experiences being activated. For example, someone who has experienced abandonment may react strongly to perceived emotional distance, even if their partner's behavior is not intentionally hurtful. Someone who has been criticized in the past may become defensive, even when feedback is gentle. Understanding emotional triggers does not excuse harmful behavior, but it does create compassion and awareness. It helps both people recognize that not every reaction is about the present moment alone. Sometimes it is about old wounds being reopened. This awareness is essential for healthier communication during conflict. Another key distinction in conflict management is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is immediate, emotional, and often impulsive. It is driven by heightened emotion rather than thoughtful reflection. When people react, they may say things they do not mean or escalate situations unintentionally. Reactions are often fueled by anger, fear, or hurt. Responding, on the other hand, involves awareness and intention. It requires pausing, even briefly, before speaking or acting. It involves acknowledging your emotions, without allowing them to take full control. A response is thoughtful rather than impulsive. It seeks understanding rather than escalation. Learning to respond instead of react is one of the most powerful emotional skills in relationships. It does not mean suppressing emotions. It means processing them before expressing them in a way that supports connection, rather than damages it. One of the most effective ways to move from reaction to response is through emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is the ability to manage your emotional state so that it does not overwhelm your communication. It allows you to stay grounded, even in moments of tension. There are many ways emotional regulation can be practiced during conflict. One of the simplest yet most powerful methods is pausing. When emotions begin to rise, taking a moment to pause before responding can prevent unnecessary escalation. This pause creates space for clarity to return. It allows the mind to shift from emotional intensity to thoughtful reflection. During this pause, breathing becomes important. Deep, intentional breathing helps calm the nervous system and reduce emotional intensity. It signals to the body that it is safe to slow down, think clearly, and respond with intention rather than urgency. Another important aspect of healthy conflict management is respectful disagreement. Respect is what separates healthy arguments from destructive ones. Even when people disagree strongly, respect ensures that communication does not become harmful. It ensures that tone, language, and intention remain focused on understanding rather than hurting. Respectful disagreement means avoiding insults, sarcasm meant to wound, or bringing up unrelated past issues just to gain advantage in the argument. It means staying focused on the current issue, without attacking the person's character. In healthy relationships, the problem is addressed, not the person's worth. One of the most damaging patterns in unhealthy conflict is personalizing disagreement. This happens when the focus shifts from the issue to attacking the identity of the other person. Instead of saying, "I feel hurt by what happened," it becomes, "You are always selfish," or "You never care about me." These statements shut down communication. They create defensiveness. And they move the conversation away from resolution. Healthy conflict avoids labeling the person, and instead focuses on specific behaviors and feelings. Another essential part of managing conflict is emotional timing. Not every moment is the right moment for a serious conversation. When emotions are extremely high, it is often more productive to pause and return to the conversation later when both people are calmer. This is not avoidance. It is emotional wisdom. Trying to resolve intense conflict while emotions are still overwhelming often leads to miscommunication and escalation. Taking space allows both individuals to reflect, regulate their emotions, and return with clearer thinking. However, space should never be used as silence or emotional withdrawal. It should be communicated clearly, with reassurance that the conversation will continue when both people are ready. Healthy conflict also involves the ability to listen even when you disagree. Listening during conflict is one of the hardest but most powerful skills in relationships. It requires setting aside the need to defend yourself long enough to truly understand your partner's perspective. When someone feels heard, their emotional intensity often decreases. They feel validated, even if there is still disagreement. This creates a foundation for resolution. Understanding does not always mean agreement, but it always creates connection. Another important element of healthy conflict is accountability. When someone acknowledges their role in a disagreement, it opens the door for healing. Accountability does not weaken relationships. It strengthens them. It shows maturity, self-awareness, and respect for the emotional experience of the other person. A simple acknowledgement of, "I understand how my actions affected you," can soften tension and rebuild emotional closeness. Conflict also becomes healthier when both people approach it as a team rather than opponents. In unhealthy dynamics, conflict feels like a battle where one person must win and the other must lose. But in healthy relationships, conflict becomes a shared challenge that both individuals work through together. The mindset shifts from me versus you to us versus the problem. This shift changes everything. It reduces defensiveness. It increases cooperation. It strengthens emotional unity. Compromise plays a key role in this process. Compromise does not mean one person always giving up what they want. It means finding solutions that consider both people's needs. It requires flexibility, understanding, and mutual respect. Healthy compromise is not about losing. It is about balancing. It is about recognizing that relationships are not about winning arguments, but about preserving connection while navigating differences. At times, compromise may require patience. At other times, it may require creativity. But when both people are committed to finding middle ground, conflict becomes an opportunity for collaboration rather than division. One of the most powerful truths about conflict is that it can actually deepen love when handled correctly. Every disagreement has the potential to teach something valuable. It can reveal unmet needs. It can highlight emotional patterns. It can bring hidden feelings into the open. It can strengthen communication skills. And it can deepen emotional understanding between two people. Instead of fearing conflict, healthy love learns to approach it with maturity. It learns to slow down instead of escalate. It learns to listen instead of assume. It learns to respond instead of react. It learns to prioritize connection over ego. When couples or individuals develop these skills, something transformative happens. Conflict no longer feels like a threat to the relationship. It becomes part of its growth. It becomes a pathway to deeper understanding, stronger trust, and more authentic connection. Because in the end, the strength of a relationship is not measured by the absence of conflict. It is measured by the ability to face conflict together and still choose each other afterward. And that is the true power of managing conflict in a healthy way. Chapter 7: Emotional Intimacy and Deep Connection. Feeling seen, safe, and understood. There is a point in every meaningful relationship where attraction alone is no longer enough. The excitement of initial connection, the thrill of discovery, and the energy of physical or surface-level chemistry may bring two people together, but they cannot sustain emotional fulfillment on their own. What truly keeps people connected over time is something far deeper, more stable, and more transformative: emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is the feeling of being truly seen, deeply understood, and emotionally safe with another person. It is the experience of being able to reveal your inner world without fear of judgment or rejection. It is knowing that someone not only hears your words, but also understands the emotions behind them. It is the quiet comfort of being fully yourself and still feeling accepted. At its core, emotional intimacy is about connection beyond the surface. It is not about how often you speak. It is about how deeply you connect when you do. It is not about how much time you spend together. It is about how present and emotionally available you are during that time. It is not about perfection or constant agreement. It is about understanding, acceptance, and emotional safety. To understand emotional intimacy, we must first understand vulnerability. Vulnerability is the willingness to show your true self, including the parts that feel uncertain, imperfect, or emotionally exposed. It is the courage to say, "This is who I am," without knowing exactly how it will be received. For many people, vulnerability feels risky. They have been hurt before. They have been misunderstood. They have experienced rejection, criticism, or emotional dismissal when they opened up in the past. As a result, they learn to protect themselves. They build emotional walls. They keep parts of themselves hidden. They present only what feels safe or acceptable. But while protection can prevent hurt, it can also prevent connection. Without vulnerability, emotional intimacy cannot grow. Because intimacy requires access to the inner world of another person, and that access can only be granted when someone feels safe enough to open the door. This is why emotional safety is essential in relationships. Emotional safety is the feeling that you can express your thoughts, emotions, fears, and desires without being judged, ridiculed, or dismissed. It is the assurance that your emotional truth will be met with understanding, rather than punishment or rejection. When emotional safety exists, people begin to relax into the relationship. They stop filtering every thought. They stop hiding their emotions. They stop performing and start being real. And in that space of authenticity, emotional intimacy begins to grow. One of the most common misunderstandings in relationships is the belief that emotional closeness is less important than physical attraction or external compatibility. While attraction may spark interest, it is emotional intimacy that sustains connection over time. Surface attraction can bring people together, but it cannot hold them together through life's challenges. When emotional intimacy is missing, relationships often feel empty even when everything looks fine on the outside. Conversations may remain shallow. Interactions may become routine. People may feel physically close, but emotionally distant. This emotional distance creates a sense of loneliness within the relationship itself. But when emotional intimacy is present, something powerful happens. Even simple moments feel meaningful. Even silence feels comfortable. Even challenges feel manageable, because there is a shared emotional foundation of trust and understanding. Emotional intimacy allows people to feel deeply connected, even in ordinary situations. It is what transforms a relationship from surface-level interaction into meaningful partnership. At the heart of emotional intimacy is the willingness to share personal truths. These truths are not always easy to express. They include fears that we may not always voice, dreams that feel too fragile to speak aloud, insecurities that we try to hide from the world, emotional experiences that shaped who we are but are difficult to revisit. Sharing these parts of ourselves requires courage. But it is through this sharing that deep connection is formed. When someone trusts you with their fears, they are offering you access to a very vulnerable part of their inner world. When someone shares their dreams with you, they are inviting you into their vision of the future. When someone expresses their insecurities, they are giving you a glimpse into the places where they need understanding and reassurance. These moments of openness create emotional bridges between people. They allow two separate lives to begin intertwining on a deeper level. However, emotional intimacy is not built by one person alone. It requires mutual participation. It grows when both individuals are willing to be open, honest, and emotionally available. When only one person shares deeply while the other remains distant or closed off, imbalance develops. The connection becomes one-sided. Emotional fulfillment becomes limited. But when both people engage in vulnerability, emotional intimacy expands naturally. Each person becomes both a giver and receiver of emotional understanding. One of the most powerful ways to strengthen emotional bonds is through empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and feel what another person is experiencing from their perspective. It is not about fixing or solving their emotions. It is about being present with them in their emotional experience. When someone shares something vulnerable, empathy allows you to respond with understanding rather than judgment. It allows you to say, "I hear you. I understand how that might feel," or "that sounds really difficult for you." Empathy creates emotional validation. And validation is one of the most powerful forms of emotional connection. When people feel validated, they feel seen. When they feel seen, they feel safe. When they feel safe, they open up more deeply. This creates a cycle of increasing emotional intimacy. Another essential element of deep connection is presence. In a world full of distractions, presence has become one of the rarest gifts we can offer another person. Being present means giving your full attention to the moment and to the person in front of you. It means setting aside distractions, worries, and mental noise in order to truly engage with what is being shared. Presence communicates value. It tells the other person, "You matter enough for me to be fully here with you." Without presence, conversations can feel disconnected even if words are exchanged. But with presence, even silence becomes meaningful. Even simple conversations become emotionally rich. Presence is not just physical. It is emotional and mental as well. It is the willingness to be fully engaged, not partially available. Emotional intimacy also grows through consistency over time. It is not something that happens instantly. It is not created through one deep conversation or one vulnerable moment. It develops gradually through repeated experiences of openness, trust, and emotional exchange. Each time someone shares something personal and is met with understanding, emotional safety increases. Each time someone expresses vulnerability and is accepted rather than judged, intimacy deepens. Each time emotional support is given and received, the connection strengthens. Over time, these moments accumulate. And what begins as simple connection slowly transforms into deep emotional bond. One of the beautiful aspects of emotional intimacy is that it allows people to feel truly known. To be known emotionally means that someone understands not just your surface personality, but your inner world. They understand your emotional patterns. They recognize your fears and hopes. They are aware of your strengths and vulnerabilities. They see you in your fullness, not just in fragments. Being truly known creates a sense of belonging that surface-level relationships cannot provide. It reduces emotional loneliness. It creates comfort. It builds trust. But emotional intimacy also requires honesty. Without honesty, emotional closeness becomes shallow or distorted. Honesty allows people to show up authentically rather than through emotional masks. It allows relationships to be built on truth rather than assumption. Even difficult truths, when shared respectfully, can strengthen emotional intimacy because they prevent emotional distance from forming. Another important aspect of emotional intimacy is emotional responsiveness. This means being attentive to your partner's emotional cues and responding in ways that acknowledge their feelings. It is noticing when something is off. It is checking in when someone seems distant. It is offering support when someone is struggling emotionally. Emotional responsiveness communicates care. It shows that you are emotionally invested in the well-being of the other person. And over time, this responsiveness builds deeper trust and connection. However, emotional intimacy cannot be forced. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be demanded. It grows in environments where safety, patience, and mutual openness exist. Trying to rush emotional closeness often leads to resistance rather than connection. True intimacy unfolds naturally when both people feel safe enough to open at their own pace. One of the most important truths about emotional intimacy is that it requires courage. Courage to be seen. Courage to be honest. Courage to let go of emotional masks. Courage to trust another person with parts of yourself that feel fragile. But this courage is rewarded with something deeply meaningful, connection that feels real. Connection that is not based on illusion, performance, or surface attraction, but on genuine understanding. When emotional intimacy is present, relationships feel different. They feel grounded. They feel safe. They feel meaningful even in silence. They feel like home. And as emotional intimacy deepens, something powerful happens within both individuals. They begin to grow. They begin to heal. They begin to understand themselves more deeply through the mirror of the relationship. Because emotional intimacy does not just connect two people. It transforms them. It creates space for growth, healing, and deeper self-awareness. It allows love to move beyond surface attraction into something far more enduring. Something real. Something stable. Something deeply human. And when two people commit to building emotional intimacy with patience, honesty, empathy, and presence, they create a kind of connection that can withstand time, challenges, and change. Because emotional intimacy is not just about feeling close. It is about becoming truly connected at the level of the heart. Chapter 8: Keeping Love Strong Through Life Changes. Growing together instead of growing apart. One of the most overlooked truths about love is that relationships do not exist in a static world. Life is constantly changing. People change. Circumstances change. Priorities shift. Dreams evolve. Careers grow or stall. Families expand or face challenges. Emotional seasons come and go. And yet, many people secretly expect relationships to remain exactly the same as they were at the beginning. They expect the early excitement to last forever. They expect connection to remain effortless, even when life becomes complicated. They expect love to survive without adapting to change. But love is not something that stays still. Love is something that must move, grow, and adjust with life. A strong relationship is not one that avoids change. A strong relationship is one that learns how to grow through change. When two people enter a relationship, they are not only bringing their present selves into it. They are also bringing their future selves. The person you love today will not remain exactly the same 5 years from now. Neither will you. You will both be shaped by experiences, challenges, successes, losses, and personal growth. This is not a threat to love. It is a natural part of life. The real question is not whether change will happen, but whether the relationship can adapt to it. One of the most significant ways relationships are tested is through external pressures such as careers, stress, and family responsibilities. These are not minor influences. They shape time, energy, emotional availability, and mental focus. Career growth, for example, can be both exciting and demanding. When one or both partners are pursuing professional goals, there may be long hours, mental exhaustion, and reduced emotional bandwidth. While ambition can strengthen life individually, it can also unintentionally create distance if the relationship is not nurtured alongside it. Stress is another powerful factor. Stress does not stay in one area of life. It moves into relationships. It affects communication, patience, emotional availability, and the ability to connect deeply. A person who is overwhelmed by stress may become withdrawn, irritable, or emotionally distant, even if their love has not changed. Family responsibilities can also add complexity. Whether it is caring for children, supporting parents, or managing family expectations, these responsibilities require time and emotional energy. Without balance, relationships can begin to feel like they are competing with external obligations rather than growing within a shared life. In all these situations, the challenge is not the external pressure itself. The challenge is how the relationship responds to it. Healthy love understands that life will not always be balanced or calm. There will be seasons of pressure, exhaustion, and emotional strain. But instead of allowing these seasons to create distance, healthy relationships learn to adapt together. Adapting as a couple means recognizing that change is not the enemy. Disconnection is. When couples stop communicating during stressful times, emotional distance begins to grow. When they assume the other person understands everything without conversation, misunderstandings form. When they stop prioritizing emotional connection, even unintentionally, the relationship begins to feel strained. But when couples remain intentional during change, something very different happens. They grow closer through the challenge. Adapting to change requires emotional flexibility. It requires the ability to understand that love will not always look the same in every season. There will be times when connection feels deeply emotional and expressive, and other times when it feels quieter and more practical. There will be moments of closeness, and moments of distance due to life demands. But emotional distance does not have to become emotional disconnection. The difference lies in effort. One of the most important elements of keeping love strong through life changes is support during difficult seasons. Support in relationships is not always about solving problems. Sometimes it is about simply being present. It is about saying, "I see what you are going through, even when you cannot fix it." It is about offering patience when your partner is overwhelmed. It is about showing understanding when they are emotionally drained. Support is the willingness to stand beside someone even when life is demanding more from them than usual. In strong relationships, support becomes a shared responsibility. It is not one person always giving and the other always receiving. It is a mutual exchange of care, encouragement, and emotional presence. When support is present, challenges become easier to navigate. Stress does not feel as isolating. Difficult seasons do not feel as overwhelming. There is a sense that no matter what is happening externally, the relationship remains a place of stability. But support alone is not enough. Connection must also be maintained intentionally. One of the most common challenges in long-term relationships is the gradual loss of connection during busy or stressful periods. People do not always notice it happening. It does not occur suddenly. It happens slowly through missed conversations, reduced emotional sharing, and the replacement of quality time with routine interaction. At first it may seem small. A conversation that used to be deep becomes brief. A moment of emotional sharing becomes logistical discussion. Time together becomes functional rather than meaningful. Over time, these small shifts accumulate, and emotional closeness begins to fade. Maintaining connection during busy times requires intentional effort. It requires choosing each other even when life feels full. It requires recognizing that emotional connection is not something that maintains itself automatically. It must be nurtured continuously. Even small moments of presence can make a difference. A genuine conversation at the end of a long day. A moment of checking in emotionally rather than just practically. A few minutes of undivided attention without distractions. These small acts communicate, "You still matter to me even in the middle of everything else." Connection is not always about quantity of time. It is about quality of attention. Even in the busiest seasons, emotional closeness can be maintained if both people remain intentional. Another important aspect of keeping love strong through change is the willingness to continue learning about each other. One of the most dangerous assumptions in long-term relationships is the belief that you already know everything about your partner. This assumption creates stagnation. People grow, but the relationship stops evolving. New experiences, new thoughts, and new emotional layers emerge over time, but they go unnoticed because both individuals assume familiarity means full understanding. But no human being remains emotionally unchanged. People evolve continuously. Their values may deepen. Their perspectives may shift. Their dreams may expand. Their fears may transform. Their emotional needs may grow or change over time. When couples stop learning about each other, they begin to grow apart emotionally, even if they remain physically together. But when couples remain curious about each other, the relationship stays alive. Curiosity keeps connection fresh. It encourages deeper conversations. It creates space for discovery, even in long-term relationships. It transforms familiarity into ongoing understanding. Asking questions, listening with interest, and being open to new layers of your partner's personality keeps emotional intimacy alive. It reminds both people that they are still evolving individuals within a shared journey. Another essential element of maintaining love through change is emotional reassurance. During stressful or transitional periods, people often experience insecurity or emotional uncertainty. They may question the stability of the relationship, even if nothing is wrong. This is where reassurance becomes important. Reassurance is not about constant validation or dependency. It is about creating emotional stability through consistent communication and care. A simple expression of commitment. A reminder of love during stressful moments. A calm presence during uncertainty. These reassurances help stabilize emotional connection during unpredictable times. They remind both individuals that even though life may feel unstable, the relationship remains steady. Flexibility is also essential in adapting to change. Rigid expectations often create frustration in relationships. When people expect love to always look a certain way, they struggle when reality shifts. But flexible relationships understand that love will evolve. There will be seasons of closeness and seasons of distance. Seasons of energy and seasons of exhaustion. Seasons of growth and seasons of rest. Flexibility allows couples to adjust without losing emotional connection. It allows them to meet each other where they are, rather than where they expect each other to be. It creates space for understanding instead of frustration. Patience is another important pillar. Growth does not always happen at the same pace for both people. One partner may be going through personal development, while the other is focused on stability. One may be emotionally available, while the other is overwhelmed. Patience allows space for these differences, without creating pressure or resentment. It allows love to breathe during uneven seasons. At the heart of keeping love strong through change is the understanding that relationships are not separate from life. They are part of life. And life will always change. This means love must be willing to adapt, adjust, and grow alongside it. But when couples face change together instead of allowing it to divide them, something powerful happens. Their bond deepens. Their understanding strengthens. Their emotional connection matures. They learn that love is not fragile when it is nurtured with intention. They learn that distance does not have to mean disconnection. They learn that challenges do not have to weaken the relationship. Instead, they become opportunities for growth. Because the strongest relationships are not the ones that avoid change. They are the ones that grow through it. They are built by two people who choose again and again to grow together instead of growing apart. Chapter 9: Recognizing Unhealthy Patterns and Letting Go. Knowing when love is hurting more than healing. One of the most difficult truths about love is that not every relationship is meant to be held onto. Some relationships teach us, some relationships shape us, and some relationships reveal us to ourselves in ways we would never have discovered otherwise. But there are also relationships that slowly drain emotional energy, weaken self-worth, and replace peace with confusion. These are the relationships where love begins to feel more like pain than comfort, where connection feels more like anxiety than safety, where you are constantly trying to fix, explain, prove, or endure, instead of simply being loved in return. And yet, letting go is often one of the hardest things a person can do. Because love is powerful. Even when it is unhealthy, it can still feel deeply emotional, familiar, and consuming. This is why recognizing unhealthy patterns is not just important, it is essential for emotional survival, growth, and long-term happiness. Healthy love should bring clarity, peace, respect, and emotional safety. If a relationship consistently brings confusion, fear, emotional instability, or a loss of self-worth, it is worth paying attention to what is really happening beneath the surface. Unhealthy relationships often do not begin in obvious ways. They rarely start with clear harm or visible emotional damage. Instead, they often begin with intensity. Strong emotions. Deep attraction. Fast emotional attachment. At the beginning, everything may feel exciting, even overwhelming in a way that feels like passion. But over time, certain patterns begin to appear. One of the most common signs of an unhealthy relationship is manipulation. Manipulation is when someone influences your emotions, decisions, or behavior through guilt, fear, confusion, or pressure rather than honesty and respect. It can be subtle. It can be disguised as love. It can even appear as care or concern. But underneath, it creates imbalance. You may find yourself constantly questioning your decisions. You may feel guilty for expressing your needs. You may feel responsible for the other person's emotions, even when they are not your responsibility. Manipulation often creates emotional confusion, where you are unsure whether your feelings are valid or exaggerated. Over time, this confusion weakens your sense of self. Another sign of an unhealthy relationship is disrespect. Respect is the foundation of love. Without it, emotional safety cannot exist. Disrespect can show up in many forms. It can appear in the way someone speaks to you during conflict. It can appear in dismissive behavior toward your feelings. It can appear in constant criticism or belittling comments that slowly damage your confidence. Sometimes disrespect is loud and obvious. Other times it is quiet and repeated until it becomes normal. But no matter its form, disrespect slowly erodes emotional connection. A relationship cannot be healthy where one person consistently feels diminished. Control is another serious pattern found in unhealthy relationships. Control is not always direct or aggressive. Sometimes it appears as jealousy that limits your freedom. Sometimes it appears as emotional pressure that influences your choices. Sometimes it appears as subtle isolation from friends, family, or personal interests. Control often disguises itself as love. It may sound like concern. It may feel like protection. But beneath it is often insecurity and emotional imbalance. Healthy love does not seek to control. It seeks to trust. It allows space for individuality. It supports freedom rather than restricting it. Emotional neglect is another deeply painful pattern. Emotional neglect happens when your feelings, needs, or emotional presence are consistently ignored or minimized. You may feel unseen even when you are physically present with the other person. You may feel unheard even when you are speaking. You may feel emotionally alone within the relationship. This kind of neglect is often difficult to identify because it is not always active harm. It is the absence of emotional care. But absence can hurt just as much as presence of conflict. Because humans need emotional connection to feel secure in relationships. Without emotional responsiveness, love begins to feel empty. Another important pattern to recognize is emotional dependency and toxic attachment. Emotional dependency occurs when your sense of stability, identity, or happiness becomes overly reliant on another person. In toxic attachment, love becomes mixed with fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of being alone. Fear of losing the relationship, even when it is unhealthy. This fear can make people tolerate behaviors they would normally recognize as harmful. It can make them stay in situations that repeatedly hurt them emotionally. It can make them ignore their own needs in order to preserve the connection. Emotional dependency often creates cycles where a person feels unable to leave, even when they know the relationship is damaging their well-being. This is not because they lack strength. It is because emotional attachment can become deeply intertwined with identity and comfort. Letting go becomes difficult because it feels like losing not only a relationship, but also emotional familiarity. This is why many people stay in painful relationships longer than they should. It is not because they do not recognize the pain. It is because fear, hope, emotional attachment, and familiarity often keep them emotionally stuck. Hope plays a powerful role in this cycle. People often stay because they believe things will change. They remember the good moments. They hold on to potential rather than reality. They believe that if they try harder, love harder, or wait longer, things will eventually improve. But change requires consistent action, not hope alone. Another reason people stay is emotional investment. The more time, energy, and emotion someone has poured into a relationship, the harder it becomes to let go. It can feel like all that effort would be wasted. But staying in something harmful does not restore what has already been given. It only continues the emotional cost. Fear is also a powerful factor. Fear of loneliness. Fear of starting over. Fear of emotional emptiness. Fear of uncertainty. These fears can make unhealthy relationships feel safer than the unknown. But emotional safety is not about familiarity. It is about well-being. It is about feeling secure, respected, and valued. One of the most important shifts in perspective is understanding that emotional safety should never be negotiable. A healthy relationship does not make you constantly question your worth. It does not leave you feeling emotionally exhausted most of the time. It does not require you to shrink, silence, or sacrifice your identity to maintain connection. Instead, it supports your growth. It respects your voice. It values your presence. It allows you to exist fully, without fear of emotional harm. Learning to recognize unhealthy patterns is not about blaming others. It is about becoming aware. Awareness is the first step toward change. Because what you do not recognize, you cannot change. And what you do not change, you continue to experience. Once you begin to recognize unhealthy patterns, you also begin to reconnect with something very important: your self-respect. Self-respect is the inner voice that reminds you that you deserve emotional safety. It is the part of you that understands that love should not consistently hurt. It is the awareness that your emotional well-being matters just as much as your connection to someone else. Choosing self-respect does not always mean walking away immediately. But it does mean no longer ignoring your emotional truth. It means acknowledging how the relationship makes you feel. It means paying attention to patterns instead of isolated moments. It means refusing to normalize emotional harm. Healing begins when you stop abandoning yourself to maintain a relationship. Letting go is not always a single action. It is often a process. It is a journey of slowly detaching from emotional patterns that no longer serve your growth. It is a process of rebuilding your identity outside of emotional dependency. It is learning to sit with discomfort while you rediscover your strength. It is learning that being alone is not the same as being empty. In fact, solitude can become a space for healing, reflection, and rediscovery. After leaving an unhealthy relationship, emotional recovery takes time. There may be moments of doubt. There may be moments of longing for what once felt familiar. There may be emotional withdrawal that comes in waves. But with time, clarity returns. Self-awareness deepens. Emotional strength begins to rebuild. And slowly peace starts to replace confusion. Growth after unhealthy relationships often leads to transformation. You begin to understand your emotional needs more clearly. You begin to recognize red flags earlier. You begin to value emotional consistency more deeply. You begin to choose yourself in ways you may not have before. One of the most powerful outcomes of healing is the return of emotional independence. You no longer rely on another person to define your worth. You no longer seek validation through emotional instability. You begin to understand that love should not cost you your peace. And when you reach this place, something shifts. You no longer chase relationships that harm your emotional well-being. You begin to attract and choose connections that reflect your growth. You begin to understand that real love does not require suffering to prove its existence. Real love feels safe. Real love feels respectful. Real love feels balanced. Letting go of unhealthy patterns is not a loss of love. It is a return to self. It is a declaration that your emotional well-being matters. It is a commitment to no longer confuse intensity with health or attachment with love. And most importantly, it is a step toward a life where love does not hurt your spirit but strengthens it. Because the deepest form of love is not the one that keeps you stuck in pain. It is the one that allows you to grow, heal, and become whole again. Chapter 10: Creating a Lasting and Joyful Partnership. Love as a Daily Choice. Every meaningful relationship eventually arrives at a quiet but powerful truth. Love is not sustained by feelings alone. Feelings are important. They bring warmth, excitement, connection, and emotional depth. But feelings are also temporary, influenced by circumstances, stress, fatigue, and life changes. What truly sustains a lasting and joyful partnership is something more intentional, more grounded, and more consistent than emotion alone. Love is a daily choice. It is the choice to show up with care, even when you are tired. It is the choice to communicate with patience, even when you are frustrated. It is the choice to remain kind, even during disagreement. It is the choice to continue investing in the relationship, even when life becomes busy or unpredictable. A lasting partnership is not created in rare moments of grand romance. It is built in ordinary days, through small, intentional actions repeated over time. Many people misunderstand what makes love last. They assume that long-term relationships survive because of intense passion or perfect compatibility. While attraction and compatibility matter, they are not what carry a relationship through years of growth, change, stress, and transformation. What sustains love is emotional effort. It is the daily commitment to nurture connection. It is the willingness to keep choosing each other, even when the initial excitement settles into something deeper and more stable. One of the most powerful habits that strengthens long-term relationships is gratitude. Gratitude shifts focus from what is missing to what is present. In long-term relationships, it is easy to become focused on flaws, frustrations, or unmet expectations. Over time, familiarity can make people take each other for granted. The things that were once appreciated begin to feel expected. The effort that once felt special begins to feel ordinary. But gratitude brings awareness back to value. It reminds you to notice what your partner contributes to your life, not just what they lack or where they fall short. When gratitude is practiced consistently, it changes emotional energy within the relationship. It creates appreciation instead of entitlement. It builds warmth instead of distance. A simple acknowledgement of effort, kindness, or support can strengthen emotional connection more than many realize. Appreciation is closely connected to gratitude, but it carries a deeper emotional expression. Appreciation is not just noticing something good. It is expressing that recognition. It is saying, "I see you." It is recognizing the emotional or practical contributions your partner makes, and allowing them to feel valued for it. In many relationships, appreciation becomes silent over time. People assume their partner already knows they care. They assume their efforts are understood without needing to be expressed. But emotional connection thrives on expression. When appreciation is spoken, it reinforces emotional security. It reassures your partner that their presence matters. It reminds them that their efforts are seen, not overlooked. Even simple words of appreciation can rebuild emotional closeness during stressful or distant periods. Affection is another essential element of lasting love. Affection is the expression of care through words, actions, and presence. It can be verbal, emotional, or physical. It can appear in gentle communication, thoughtful gestures, or moments of closeness. Affection is not only about romance. It is about emotional warmth. It communicates connection without needing explanation. In long-term relationships, affection often becomes less frequent not because love disappears, but because comfort replaces intentionality. People assume affection is no longer necessary once a relationship is established. But emotional connection still needs reinforcement. Without affection, relationships can begin to feel routine or emotionally distant. With affection, they remain alive and emotionally engaging. Even small expressions of care can reignite emotional closeness. A kind word, a moment of attention, a gesture of thoughtfulness. These small acts carry emotional weight because they remind both people that love is still being actively chosen. Quality time is another powerful habit that strengthens long-term relationships. But quality time is not simply about being physically present in the same space. It is about emotional presence. It is about giving attention without distraction. It is about engaging meaningfully rather than passively existing together. In a world filled with constant distractions, quality time has become more valuable than ever. Phones, work demands, responsibilities, and stress can easily pull attention away from relationships. Without intentional effort, couples may find themselves physically together but emotionally disconnected. Quality time restores emotional presence. It creates space for conversation, laughter, sharing, and connection. It reminds both individuals that the relationship is still a priority, not just a background part of life. Even small moments of intentional connection can make a difference. What matters is not always duration but depth of presence. One of the most important truths about lasting love is that small daily actions matter more than occasional big gestures. Many people believe relationships are sustained by grand romantic moments or major efforts made occasionally. But real emotional closeness is built through consistency. It is built through repeated actions that communicate care. A consistent good morning message. A thoughtful check-in during the day. A moment of listening after a long day. A gentle expression of concern or affection. These may seem small, but over time, they accumulate into emotional security. They create a rhythm of connection that strengthens the relationship quietly, but powerfully. In contrast, large but rare gestures cannot replace daily emotional presence. A relationship cannot thrive on occasional effort alone. It requires ongoing attention. Emotional teamwork is another essential foundation of lasting partnership. In a strong relationship, both individuals understand that they are not opponents navigating life separately, but partners working together toward shared well-being. Emotional teamwork means supporting each other through challenges instead of withdrawing during difficulty. It means communicating openly about stress, needs, and struggles, instead of carrying emotional burdens alone. It means recognizing that the health of the relationship is a shared responsibility. When emotional teamwork is present, challenges feel less overwhelming. Both individuals feel supported. Both individuals feel included. Both individuals feel like they are working together rather than separately. This sense of unity strengthens emotional resilience in the relationship. Patience is also a critical ingredient in lasting love. No relationship remains perfect at all times. There will be moments of misunderstanding. There will be emotional differences. There will be seasons where one or both individuals are emotionally stretched or distracted by life. Patience allows space for these moments, without allowing them to damage the foundation of love. It prevents temporary frustration from becoming long-term emotional distance. It allows understanding to grow even during imperfect moments. Patience is not about ignoring issues. It is about giving space for growth, communication, and healing. Mutual growth is another powerful aspect of a lasting partnership. Healthy relationships are not static. They evolve as both individuals evolve. Each person brings their own personal development into the relationship. Over time, both individuals learn, change, and grow through experiences, challenges, and reflection. In strong relationships, this growth is supported, not resisted. Each person encourages the other to become a better version of themselves. Each person supports the other's goals, dreams, and personal development. This creates a dynamic relationship where growth is shared rather than feared. When both people grow individually, while also growing together, the relationship remains alive and meaningful. One of the most important shifts in mindset for lasting love is understanding that relationships are not maintained automatically. They require intention. They require awareness. They require emotional investment. Love does not remain strong simply because two people care about each other. It remains strong because both people actively choose to nurture it. This includes choosing kindness even during disagreement. Choosing communication instead of silence. Choosing understanding instead of assumption. Choosing connection instead of emotional withdrawal. Intentional love is not accidental. It is created through conscious effort. Over time, these choices shape the emotional atmosphere of the relationship. A relationship built on intention feels different. It feels steady. It feels safe. It feels emotionally nourishing. It does not rely on emotional highs to feel meaningful. It is sustained through consistency, respect, and care. Kindness plays a central role in this process. Kindness is often underestimated in long-term relationships because it can seem simple. But kindness is powerful. It shapes tone, behavior, and emotional experience. Kindness softens conflict. Kindness strengthens communication. Kindness builds emotional safety. Even in difficult moments, kindness preserves dignity and connection. When kindness is consistently present, love feels safe. And when love feels safe, it becomes easier to sustain. A joyful partnership is not one that avoids challenges. It is one that knows how to return to connection after challenges. It is one that prioritizes emotional repair over emotional distance. It is one that understands that disagreement does not have to weaken love. It can strengthen it when handled with care. Joy in long-term relationships is not constant excitement. It is emotional peace. It is comfort. It is trust. It is the feeling of being emotionally at home with another person. It is knowing that even through change, stress, and imperfection, there is still a shared commitment to care for one another. In the end, creating a lasting and joyful partnership is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is about choosing love daily in small, meaningful ways. It is about showing up with gratitude, appreciation, affection, and presence. It is about working as a team through life's challenges. It is about growing together while allowing space for individual growth. And most importantly, it is about understanding that love is not something you fall into and forget about. It is something you build, nurture, and protect every single day. When two people commit to this kind of intentional love, they create something powerful. A relationship that does not just survive time, but grows stronger because of it. A partnership rooted not in chance, but in choice. A love that is not only lasting but deeply joyful. Conclusion: healthy love is built, not found. A final reflection on growth, connection, and emotional maturity. Every journey through love eventually leads to reflection. After all the lessons, experiences, emotional insights, and personal growth, one truth remains quietly but powerfully at the center of it all. Healthy love is not something we stumble upon by luck. It is something we actively build, shape, and nurture over time. This understanding changes everything. It changes how we approach relationships. It changes how we see ourselves. It changes how we respond to conflict, connection, distance, and emotional vulnerability. And most importantly, it changes how we define love itself. For many people, love begins as a feeling to be found. There is a belief that somewhere out there exists a perfect person who will complete everything missing within them, who will never hurt them, never misunderstand them, and never require emotional effort to maintain connection. But life gently teaches something different. Love is not perfection. Love is not effortless harmony at all times. Love is not the absence of challenges, disagreements, or emotional complexity. Instead, love is a living experience between two imperfect human beings learning how to grow together without losing themselves in the process. Throughout this ebook, we have explored what it truly means to build healthy love in a world where emotional confusion, unrealistic expectations, and relational pain are often misunderstood. We began by understanding that healthy love is defined not by intensity, but by emotional safety, respect, honesty, and consistency. Real love is not about how strongly it starts, but about how steadily it grows. It is not about emotional highs alone, but about stability, trust, and mutual understanding that deepens over time. We also explored the importance of self-love and emotional independence. Because the relationship you have with yourself becomes the foundation for every other relationship in your life. When self-worth is strong, love becomes a choice rather than a need. You stop seeking validation through others and begin to build connections from a place of wholeness rather than emptiness. We learned that communication is not just about speaking, but about understanding. It is about listening with empathy, expressing emotions honestly, and creating space for vulnerability without fear. When communication becomes open and respectful, relationships become emotionally safer and more meaningful. We also discovered that trust is not automatic. It is earned through consistency, honesty, accountability, and time. Trust grows slowly, but once established, it becomes one of the strongest foundations a relationship can have. And when trust is broken, healing is possible, but it requires patience, transparency, and genuine emotional effort. Boundaries reminded us that love does not mean self-sacrifice. In fact, healthy love cannot exist without emotional, physical, and personal limits. Boundaries are not barriers to connection. They are structures that protect emotional safety and preserve individuality within relationships. We also explored conflict, one of the most misunderstood aspects of love. Conflict is not a sign of failure. It is a natural part of connection between two people with different perspectives and emotional histories. What matters is not whether conflict exists, but how it is handled. Respectful disagreement, emotional regulation, empathy, and teamwork transform conflict into an opportunity for growth rather than division. Emotional intimacy reminded us that real connection goes far beyond surface attraction. It is built through vulnerability, emotional safety, presence, and deep understanding. It is the experience of being seen, heard, and accepted in your most authentic form. This kind of intimacy develops gradually, through trust and emotional openness over time. We also reflected on how love must adapt through life changes. Careers, stress, responsibilities, and personal growth all shape relationships in different ways. But couples who grow together instead of growing apart are those who remain intentional, supportive, and emotionally connected even through shifting seasons of life. We also faced the difficult but necessary truth about unhealthy patterns. Not all love is healthy, and not all relationships are meant to continue. Recognizing manipulation, control, disrespect, emotional neglect, and dependency is not about judgment but awareness. It is about learning to value emotional safety and having the courage to choose yourself when necessary. And finally, we explored what it means to create lasting and joyful partnerships. Not through perfection but through consistency. Through gratitude, appreciation, affection, patience, teamwork, and daily emotional effort. Love that lasts is not maintained by rare moments of intensity, but by ordinary moments of care repeated over time. When we bring all of these lessons together, a powerful truth emerges. Healthy love is not accidental. It is intentional. It is not found fully formed. It is built gradually. It is not sustained by emotion alone. It is sustained by choice, awareness, and emotional maturity. This is where awareness becomes essential. Awareness allows you to see relationships clearly, rather than through illusion. It helps you recognize patterns instead of ignoring them. It helps you understand your emotional needs and the emotional needs of others. It allows you to step into relationships with clarity, rather than confusion. But awareness alone is not enough. It must be paired with patience. Patience with yourself as you grow emotionally. Patience with others as they learn and evolve. Patience with the process of building something meaningful over time. Healthy love does not develop instantly. It unfolds. It deepens. It strengthens through shared experiences, challenges, healing, and emotional learning. And alongside awareness and patience, emotional maturity becomes one of the most important foundations of all. Emotional maturity is the ability to take responsibility for your emotions without projecting them onto others. It is the ability to communicate with honesty instead of avoidance. It is the ability to respond instead of react. It is the ability to value understanding over ego and connection over being right. Emotionally mature love is not perfect, but it is balanced. It is respectful. It is supportive. And it is grounded in mutual care. This kind of love does not avoid challenges, but it faces them with intention. It does not ignore differences, but navigates them with respect. It does not depend on fantasy, but grows through reality. One of the most important reminders from this journey is that healthy relationships are not defined by perfection. They are defined by balance. Balance between giving and receiving. Balance between individuality and togetherness. Balance between independence and emotional connection. Balance between honesty and compassion. Balance between personal needs and shared goals. When balance exists, relationships feel stable rather than chaotic. They feel nurturing rather than draining. They feel like a place of growth rather than emotional confusion. And perhaps most importantly, they feel safe. Because emotional safety is the true foundation of lasting love. Not intensity. Not perfection. Not constant excitement. But safety. Safety to be yourself. Safety to express your feelings. Safety to grow without fear of emotional rejection. As you move forward from these lessons, it is important to remember that growth in love is not a destination. It is a continuous journey. There will always be new lessons, new emotional experiences, new challenges, new opportunities to deepen your understanding of yourself and others. But with awareness, patience, and emotional maturity, you become better equipped to navigate them. You begin to choose relationships not based on fear, loneliness, or pressure, but based on alignment, respect, and emotional well-being. You begin to value peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, connection over control, and love over attachment that causes harm. Most importantly, you begin to understand that you are not just a participant in love. You are a builder of it. Every conversation, every boundary, every moment of honesty, every act of kindness, every decision to stay or walk away, these are the tools with which you shape your emotional life. And with these tools, you have the power to create relationships that are not only lasting but deeply meaningful. As you continue forward, carry this truth with you. Healthy love is not something you wait for. It is something you practice. It is something you choose. It is something you build day by day, through awareness, effort, and care. And while no relationship is without challenges, the relationships that are built on respect, emotional safety, communication, and mutual growth have the power to endure, evolve, and deepen in ways that bring real fulfillment. There is hope in that truth. Because it means that love is not random. It is not out of your control. It is something you can actively participate in shaping. And when two people choose to build love with intention, patience, and emotional maturity, they create something truly powerful. A connection that does not simply survive time, but grows stronger because of it. A partnership that is not defined by perfection, but by understanding. A love that is not fragile, but deeply rooted in care, respect, and consistency. That is the promise of healthy love. And that promise is always possible, one intentional choice at a time. Thank you for reading this book. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to leave us a review. TM Light. Disclaimer. This book was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. While every effort was made to ensure the accuracy and relevance of the content, readers should note that this cannot be considered professional advice. Readers are encouraged to apply their own judgment and consult experts where needed.